Point Romeo, day 974, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Old bonds and memories rot away faster than we think, and new ones bloom in a heartbeat. I no longer wake each morn to the serene silence that I took for granted in Wyoming. Soon I might even become accustomed to the rapturous gunfire and crying children. Is it possible for such a hopeful place to exist in a world so barren of emotion? Those who know this place go about their business with little care for the newcomers, but nothing could have prepared me for this anarchic plight for survival, for the companionless burden of everyday life. Today was, without a doubt, the busiest I've been since I arrived here. Long-awaited shipments from the southwest finally arrived. Hulking grey trucks plundered through Main Street. Dishevelled people watched as they went, surrounding them like the Messiah's triumphant return to Jerusalem. Though these trucks were not met with elation, they were met with a shackled happiness. Everyone knew that when a truck sparsely filled with food comes in, a truck laden with bodies goes out. As the newcomer, a term I've become increasingly mocked with, it was my job to load the truck before it departed. I'd reason with a corpse before it dared me to move it. Let's not do this the hard way, I'd say, as if that would stop the flaming arms of the carcass grasping me as I lifted it. I'd always thought being surrounded by death would only make me all too aware of my mortality, but it did just the opposite. Once you get past the loneliness, the isolation, you realise you've made it. You've beaten the unstoppable force, death. It takes many hours for a body to be consumed, yet a lifetime for a mourner to mourn their dead. Seldom time for mourning here, though, especially when it could be you next. Checkpoint Echo, day 136, Denver, Colorado. The only real failure is the failure to try. In an increasingly turbulent world, this will to try is ever subdued. I've forgotten how much I love Colorado. Past the drug labs and high crime rates, it's often taken for granted. However, not even the bewitching vistas of Colorado can offer me solace. Today the capital announced that the country was under quarantine, and that Washington DC would become the last sanctuary in the world of men. The capital is still trying to round us all up like cattle. The will of the people is harder to break than they think. Denver is destitute at the moment. There are a few hundred of us, but we keep to ourselves. All for the better, in my opinion. People become a burden, and tensions run continuously high in a world as fragile as ours. Dejection encapsulates me, like vultures encircling their prey, ever so often swooping in and pecking at whatever joy still clings to my carcass. The last few days have been about getting out of the way, something I was always too familiar with. I spent my whole childhood feeling like I was second best, and feeling like I could never satisfy. I take myself off to my room and get lost in my own world. I tell myself there was always tomorrow, but now I don't know if there will be a tomorrow. Can you hear yourself, I'd say, never losing my composure, unlike her. Her nose would turn up, her nostrils flaring, as if to spew like the destructive beast she was. She would start to clutch at things and smash them against whatever she could. This time, I wasn't going to cry myself to sleep, in hope of a better tomorrow. This time, when I cowered back to my room, I did not pity myself. I pitied her. I pitied them, my family, my friends. Maybe it was all in my head, but the feeling of tearing off the shackles of self-doubt, which had restricted me for so long, was euphoric. That was when I took action. And in the dead of night, I made my escape. I digress. Today has been all about getting out of the way. And for me in Denver, that meant foraging for supplies and my long journey to the East Coast. Checkpoint Juliet. Day 780, Little Rock, Arkansas. Those who do not learn from history are bound to repeat it. Who would have known this quote would ever apply? As a civilization, we've always learned from war, as a nation. However, we were never ready to admit our failures as a collective. Little Rock is what I always thought it would be, a little morsel of happiness in a vast state home to the poor. So far on my journey, this is the place I'd most like to call home. The neighbourhood of Pleasant Valley really describes itself in the name. Adirondack-style buildings and cross roads that could only be bettered if paved by pure gold. I woke to news of an attack on Washington, D.C. It was thought to be a malfunction of some kind of a weapon they were storing. The state-controlled radio would tell me little more than that. It's been around 2 years now since I've left home. I left a note telling people I'd left to travel the world. I would have made it out of the States if it hadn't been for the event. Instead, I've had to travel east, in the vague hope ships will still run across the Atlantic. If it wasn't for the people I've met along the way, I'd probably be there by now. There's been a multitude of people that I've tried to leave behind, careful not to befriend them due to their mouths to feed. As I journey on, I find it increasingly difficult to sleep. The stress of knowing that if I had taken those people with me, they might have had a chance of living normally. That guilt tears me up inside. I must stress, however, that this world is not as bad as I previously exaggerated. This is not some cliché post-apocalyptic nightmare where people are struggling to survive. This is a world where there is no hope, no ambition. The population is a fraction of what it used to be, yes, but society is not yet a thing of the past. Much to survival enthusiasts' dismay, the world isn't as we predicted. Food trucks still deliver up and down the country, delivering stringy meat and tasteless vegetables. Makes me sick just thinking about it. Checkpoint Whiskey, day 4632, Boston, Massachusetts. We should draw from the heart of suffering itself the means of inspiration and survival. I recently found this quote sporting defeated across the town hall. This quote personifies the atmosphere that is at the very core of Boston. It's approaching my 5th year since I left home, and now I've nearly repressed those memories of home. Maybe I can finally moved on. It's been months since I last wrote in this book. The hustle and bustle of a functioning city has been refreshing. Those vultures I'm sure I've just written about before have been shot down and replaced with finches and sparrows. It's not relevant, really. I'm just trying to get across the fact that my life is at a U-turn. The family core in Boston gives me a new purpose. We all chip in and help each other. We care. On my journey, I've settled many places that felt like they could be a place I could call home. Little Rock, Louisiana, New Orleans. Those places in hindsight were just as desolate as I was. When hope has been ridden from you, the darkest and most lifeless of cities can become a comforting home. Boston, however, is really something different. Boston's a youthful city. The old have long either left or died. The coming months will be all about me settling down with her. I'd known her when I was around 9 or 10 years old. We were best friends for only a few months before she moved east. I recognised her from a long pink ribbon she'd wear as a hairband. She was strikingly beautiful. Long blonde hair fell to her shoulders, amber eyes as blinding as the sun, and a heart so capable of love. She'd recognised me from a very distinct scar behind my ear, a scar that ran from the back of the ear to the jaw, a scar caused by everything I've been running away from, hatred. More specifically, the hatred of my mother and her tendency to throw things. That time it was a glass bottle, and I was her target. As I write this, my love lies behind me. We have no time or need to declare our love in a world still so rife with uncertainty and worry. So if anyone who reads this in the future was hoping for a typical love story, I'm afraid you've been horrifically mistaken. I've always dreamt of having children, however, it may be a few years off. Boston still remains open to asylum seekers who aim to destroy the family community we built here. But one day, I'm sure everything will turn out just fine. After all, there's always tomorrow.